Hey everyone, welcome to Maverick and Farmer Coffee Roasters. Today we're trying to attempt something fairly maverick, and we're going to try and make a cafe style espresso based beverage like a cappuccino or latte. You know, the ones that are made with these big fancy ass machines that have two boilers and one steam wand to foam the milk and a 9-bar group head with a portafilter to extract the most beautiful espresso and heating devices on top, etc. And we're just going to try and make that with this. So it's very simple, and just watch very closely, and later if you have any questions you could definitely get in touch with us. So what I'm going to do is, this by the way is called a French press for those who don't know, and we have another video that will show you how to use a French press in a regular fashion. We're trying to mimic an espresso to use as a base for our drink. So we're going to use a slightly finer grind size, and I would suggest that when you place an order, choose a medium grind, a medium or a medium fine grind. So here I'm going to use our Tall Dark Handsome. It's a nice dark roast. I need about 20 grams, and that's probably, depending on the size of your spoon, is going to come to about 3 spoonfuls. Okay, perfect. Keep that back there. And now I'm going to let this coffee bloom with a little bit of hot water. Okay, so I need a total of 120 ml or 120 grams of hot water, but I'm going to start with about 30 grams of hot water. This is a little important because when it comes to this kind of extraction, we want as much to be extracted as possible. 30 grams of water to start with. And the water should probably just come off the boil. Just wait for a few seconds before you can put it into this French press. So we're going to wait for about 30 to 35 seconds for this to bloom. So what that basically means is the gases that have been formed during the roasting process will now escape and therefore not get mixed with your beverage, as well as you're making the beans, the grounds nice and wet and ready for the perfect extraction, right? So that's going to take about 30 to 40 seconds, and we're done. I pour the rest of the water. It has to be equally hot, and this is going to be 120 ml. Very carefully give it a quick stir because this is made of glass, so you have to be careful, or to be on the safer side use a chopstick or a satay stick or any sort of a wooden spoon. And now what we're going to do is we are going to just place this plunger of the French press on top of the liquid. We're not going to plunge yet. What this does, it tries to keep as much of the heat in as possible. So this is definitely going to take about 3 minutes, I would say. If you want something that's lighter, then you can probably brew this for 2.5 minutes. If you want something that's stronger and richer but could go towards a bitter side, then you could wait for about 4 minutes. So this, I'm going to let it brew for about 3 minutes. Right, so we are now 3 minutes into our brew, and it's ready to plunge. Now just remember, this French press is built for a coarser grind size of coffee. We've used a finer grind, so it's going to be slightly tricky to plunge this, but be gentle, don't push too hard. Just very gently and slowly press your plunger down. So what's going to happen is the coffee grounds that have done their job are now going to move down below and release the brewed, very strong coffee. Mind you, this is not going to taste like an espresso that comes out of a semi-automatic machine, but it's fairly close, and especially when you're making a latte or a cappuccino, it's pretty good for home use. I like to use about 40 to 42 grams of this brewed coffee, and for these 42 grams I would like to use about 210 ml of milk for a latte, right? So I'm just going to pour that out here. So that's about 44 grams, which is fine. So now our espresso is ready, and we're going to prepare our milk. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to foam the milk, right? And there's a way to do it. I'm just going to use the same glass here, and I will be using 210 ml of milk. Try and use something that's at least about, say, 3% of fat, because you need that fat to texture the milk. So now, this is very important. We're going to raise the temperature of this milk, okay? We're going to heat it, but we can't take it past 60 to 65 degrees. 60 to 65 degrees is a perfect temperature to foam milk. The proteins and the fats and all of them do their job best, get stretched and trap the air bubbles when it is at 60 to 65 degrees. Now, if you're at home and if you don't have a thermometer, how do you test for 60 to 65 degrees? It's fairly simple. 60 to 65 degrees is the temperature that we can sort of tolerate with our fingers, okay? So when you touch the vessel, you should be able to keep your fingers for about a second or maybe a second and a half, and then it becomes uncomfortable. That's when you know you're at the right temperature. If you can keep it for a little longer than that, you need to bring the temperature up. If you're not able to even place your finger on the vessel or on the container, that means you've gone way past 60 to 65, and that's not a good thing, because then the sugars, the natural sugars of the milk sort of dissipate. So while that happens, I'm just going to clean out this French press because I want to use the same one to foam to texture my milk. So I think this is about the right temperature. I can just about place my fingers on the vessel, and so here's the interesting part. We brewed the coffee using this, and now we're going to foam the milk using this. Pour in almost 210 ml of milk into your French press, washed, right? And now there's going to be a little bit of spillage, so just be careful of that. Place your plunger over and just give it a few pumps. Now you see the level of the milk that's here. I want it to rise to at least about this much, okay? So that means the air bubbles are mixing in with the milk, and they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and we're going to get micro bubbles and therefore get a nice micro foam of this milk. Looks like we're almost there. So now we have our espresso, which is still fairly warm. I'm going to use this pitcher because I'm comfortable with this, but you could use any steel pitcher, or even if you have a glass pitcher with a little spout like this, it helps. So if you can see, this milk has become nice and creamy, and it smells really sweet, so that means the temperature was just right. Just give it a couple of taps and mix it around, and pour. And there you have it, a cafe style latte made at home with just this little piece of equipment. Happy brewing, guys. Do let me know if you have any questions. You can get in touch with us. You can write your questions in the comments below.